Tommy Daniels here. Welcome to another edition of Around the ECHL. Great to see that face there to my left. Missed him last year, but the Idaho Steelheads are back and better than ever this year. The voice of your Idaho Steelheads is Colin Shuck. Good to see you, Shucker.
Oh, Tommy, it's great to see you as well. It's nice to see everyone getting back together after this past year. And we were kind of the outcast last year as the only team in the division that weren't playing. So we're kind of the odd ones compared to the East and the South division.
So what did you do last year? I know I've talked to a couple people around the league. I won't mention their name, but who said, I can't watch games. You know, it's too difficult. What about you? Were you into it? Were you kind of watching the playoffs, or did you kind of just back off?
So I kind of backed off. I backed off pretty hard just because of the circumstances of what we couldn't help in a very fluid and unknown situation. So when we got shut down for the season for the league, we were in Rapid City. And then about 2 weeks later, our company, which has 3 hotels, our arena, and our hockey team, they laid off 80% of the staff. And I was out of work from then on until this past July. So, you know, the first few months were difficult mentally. It was challenging because you're in the middle of it. I mean, the Steelheads and the Americans were right in the grips of a really big playoff push, and they were looking like the top 2 teams in the division. And then all of a sudden, just like that, you're out of it. So it put a lot of things in perspective. I ended up working in retail for the last 11 months. So from July, August of 2020 until the end of June this past year, I was in retail and I worked in retail management. Stayed locally because we didn't know if we were going to come back for the previous season, which it turns out we didn't. We didn't find that out until, October, November, December. So I was already 4 months into my job. So I had to kind of stick around and stick it out. So I didn't really watch hockey. I barely followed the league, and it's not a knock on the league. It's not a knock on my team. It's just you develop a love-hate relationship with it when hockey can give you so much, but then in that moment it took so much away at the same time. So I was kind of the same way. I kind of just took a big step back from it and did everything outside of hockey before coming back again.
You guys have such a passionate fan base. Always love going there. I think about there's an older gentleman right to the left of the visiting broadcast booth, and he's always yelling stuff. And, you know, it's funny. He'll every once in a while just look over and wink, you know, like, hey, man, it's something personal or whatever. I love it. I missed going there last year. It's the best setup in the entire league. If it's raining outside, you don't even have to leave the building, right? I mean, take the elevator up to 12 and then all the way down to the basement and you're there. I mean, it's the perfect setup. I missed being there last year. There's something about going to Idaho. Obviously the relationship with you in Dallas, a lot of our fans are still mad. Why are we not affiliated with that? Well, you know what? Hey, I mean, you got to look at the relationship between Idaho and Dallas. It goes way, way back. You know, coaches, Scott White. I mean, there's a lot of history between the two organizations. I get it. I'm excited about Seattle this year. So talk about that relationship, if you would, between Idaho and Dallas, and what was it like last year, obviously for them when they didn't have the Idaho Steelheads to bounce players back and forth?
Well, I mean, talking about the history between the Steelheads and the Stars, it's the 3rd longest relationship in the ECHL. It's only behind that of Detroit and Toledo, as well as Pittsburgh and Wheeling. So there's a lot of fans, I think, that have a little sour blood from Allen from working with them before, now no longer, and being in their backyard. But from a hockey standpoint, there's been a lot of movement upwards in terms of players, in terms of coaching as well, too. You have one coach in the NHL right now, Derek Laxdal, who's running the power play for the Stars. And then you have Neil Graham, who was just the head coach of the Steelheads before. He's now the head coach in Texas. So you see that chain move up. And from a hockey side of things, it's a very well-knit relationship, and it's been a long-standing good relationship to move players up, to move coaches up, to move staff up. So that history has really helped the Steelheads with that longevity, and there's no reason why either side wanted to move on from each other this past year, even with Seattle coming in, because look, we have direct flights to Dallas this year, and we play all of our games in Boise, usually in the Midwest. So it's an easy flight to get in and get out. So it's some of those inner workings that I think a lot of folks don't think about. Whereas you and I work with travel normally, that's a big aspect in terms of cost, in terms of ease and getting players to and from places. And, look at it now. You would think that there were the roles are swapped where we would be with Seattle and you would be with Dallas, but it's just the other way around. But it's just kind of the way things go. But last year, I mean, the relationship is still really strong. Head coach Everett Sheehan still went up to Dallas camp up in Traverse City, where they had that preseason mini tournament. Was up in Texas camp this past week as well, too. So it's really strong. It's good. And, not trying to forecast too far ahead, there's still going to be a strong presence with Dallas and Texas in this year's Steelheads team for this season. So you're going to continually see that. It's just a matter of waiting for that time to come as training camps are starting to open up at this level now.
You're the first guy I've really had a chance to talk to about this, of the teams that didn't play last year. But, are you worried at all about fans saying, well, you know what, you weren't here last year, I found something else to do with my money, I joined a bingo league, I'm playing bowling now, or whatever, I'd compare this to when I was in the North American Hockey League, and a team I worked for went away for a year because of building renovations. They didn't come back. Yeah. I know you guys have a strong fan base up there. What has the relationship been like over the last 12 months between the Steelheads and their fans?
Well, I think we're very fortunate because as someone who works in media, who worked with the social media aspects of it, the publicity, I sat there and wondered, is that going to happen here? Because you have basically your suites director and your now general manager running those accounts and trying to keep that engagement up, something that we work to cultivate. And I don't know the specific number, nor will I give the number even if I did know it, but put it this way. The season ticket holder base for the Steelheads this year is the strongest it's been in probably 20 years.
Wow.
It's a very, very fortunate thing that we have this year. And I think that's a credit for multiple reasons. Number one, people out here looking for something to do. The pandemic brought everyone back inside again. And I'm sure you've seen it down there in Dallas too, that people just want to get out and do things. Sure. And up here, people are more outdoors. They're more outgoing. They want to get out and just be out doing anything just outside. It's more the nature of a lot of people in the Pacific Northwest. So that plays to our favor, but it's also the relationship that we've had with the community for the last 25 years. And this will be year number 25 of the Steelheads having a presence in Boise, but technically season number 24. And we just had an alumni game this past weekend. We had 30 players come out from the past 25 years, all of them who were retired, but all big names coming in. More wanted to come, but because of pandemic issues, they couldn't. So it would have been maybe 35, 40 players normally, so almost 2 full teams. And the response from fans at that game for the timing that it was compared to when it usually is was pretty strong. So it's everything all together, the community presence, our role in the community, and the last year and how people's responses have been to the pandemic. It's kind of worked all together in our favor, and we're extremely fortunate to have that. Now, of course, if regulations change, could that number shift? Absolutely. But for now, for the forecast of what it can be, it's way better than what we could have expected. And we are eternally grateful for having a loyal fan base and for having a community that just wants to get out and do things in downtown Boise.
So last year, and by the way, the voice of the Idaho Steelheads, Colin Shuck, joining us here on Around the ECHL. So last year we're at 50%, but now when you move the social distancing into that plan, it's more like 40%. This year we're back to 100%, not mandating that you wear a mask, but it's optional. If you want to wear one, you wear one. What's it like in Boise this year?
Well, for our fan base, the urgency is to get back to normal. Obviously, we're going to be following everything that the ECHL puts out in terms of protocol, following everything that the CDC and our local health officials, as well as the city of Boise, have been putting out as well, too. So the fan base climate versus the climate of responsibility are on opposite ends right now.
Yeah.
But our job is obviously to marry the two in the best way that we can, being responsible while also being able to give the people what they want. So
Sure.
it's, it's a very gray area. It's a very fluid situation. So things can change, things can move from one way to the other, one extreme to the other. It's going to depend on a lot of different factors. But people just want to get back to it. They want to get back to a sense of normalcy, a sense of what they had before, and just move on. So it's going to play into both ways, both good and bad. It's going to be an interesting season. It's going to be an odd season because not everything is going to be back to normal, but a lot of things will be. So it's kind of an amalgamation compared to what you guys had to deal with last year, where it was strictly shut down, hard bubbles, that sort of thing. It's a little bit more lax this year. It'll still be a challenge for a lot of folks to get used to that. But as long as we're educating and trying to stay on top of it and stay engaged with questions and stuff, I think it can go pretty well for what we're all having to deal with currently.
Give me the top 5 things that Colin was doing during the pandemic when he wasn't calling hockey games on the weekend. What were you doing to entertain yourself?
Well, weekends I was still working, so the real to life does not take away, does not give you opportunity to have weekends again. But 5 things that I was doing outside of that time. Number 1, I got really big into Formula One. I watched that Netflix documentary series, Drive to Survive, and even still to this day, I am hooked. And I grew up a NASCAR fan, so that was right in my wheelhouse. So that was number 1. Getting into Formula One, and now I'm a big fan, and that's something every Sunday morning I watch the highlights when I wake up because it's way too early to watch a race. I'm out here 5-6 a.m. I'm not going for it. Number 2, there was a lot of video games and a lot of video game streaming. Something I just like to do for fun on the side. Number 3, spending time and energy with friends and family that, I don't have family out here, but relationships that I have out here, and keeping in touch with people at home. That was a big thing, especially in that tumultuous time where I sat at home for 4 months and basically did nothing but Netflix and games and that sort of thing. Number 4, I got back a lot more into music, and a lot of music that I grew up with, not just like 90s music and those genres, but before broadcasting and before college, I was heavily involved in musical theater. So it was only perfect that Hamilton came out on Disney Plus during the pandemic. So that kind of helped revitalize that and get that moving forward. And then number 5 was just watching the entirety of the Marvel movies from start to finish and getting back engrossed in that. I'm a big old nerd. I love Captain America. So for me, that was a no-brainer. And now it's every week, every time there's a release, I'm out on top of it. So it allowed me a chance to catch up on the things that during hockey season and during a time where you're constantly going, you don't have time to go see things and do things. But I was able to be at least a little bit normal, which was kind of a nice change of pace.
Have you seen the new Bond yet?
I have not seen it. That's on the list to see. Shang-Chi I still have to see as well. And the Eternals coming out next month is also already on the list.
And I noticed you changed the hairdo a bit. I mean, it looks different. The glasses are gone. I at first I went, wow, they have a new broadcaster, right?
It helps when you lose your glasses at a golf tournament. So you're forced to rely on contacts and your bad vision as a whole. But yeah, the COVID beard was a real thing. I didn't shave for about 3 months. And then I was like, let's keep it. Let's work with it. So yeah, new look, new me. And it's kind of a metaphor for a new step starting out this year.
Well, I missed seeing you at the league meetings. That was a lot of fun. The guys were there. I know we had a good time, but there was a lot of people that were missed. You were obviously one of those people on the list, but do look forward to seeing you coming to Allen this year. And hey, you're back to playing hockey, buddy. We started the 23rd. When's your first game?
We start the day before on the 22nd. So we start on that Friday, and then we have 2 games in Utah, the 23rd and 24th, to get us going.
Well, hey, good to see you back. I know you got a lot of work to do between now and then, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tommy. Appreciate it, and I am absolutely stoked to see you guys again this year.
Absolutely. The voice of the Idaho Steelheads. New look, new season, Colin Shuck. Welcome to Around the ECHL. Tommy Daniels, pleased to be joined by the Senior VP of Operations with the ECHL. And I hope he considers me a good friend, a Buffalo brother from another mother, the one and only Joe Ernst. Joe, good morning from Toledo.
Morning, Tommy. How are you?
I'm fabulous. 11 days until opening night. I'm excited. We've got a full league playing hockey. That's good news. And I know that's going to make it busier for your crew. You and Steven have done a great job, obviously, and making sure that we get this thing safe and ready. If you would just kind of talk about, heading into this season, how much has your job changed from the safety protocol from last year?
It's changed a little bit. I think it's considered, as we all know, we're considering them in vaccination and unvaccinated. So it's add a little bit more, and then add 13 more teams on top of that, and trying to make sure buildings are doing what they need to do, teams are doing what they need to do. Just making sure that everything is being done right. At the end of from mind of it, the players, coaches, and support staff, is safety is the number one thing. But we're getting there. It's going to be a challenge again. But at the same time, guess what? We're playing hockey again.
It's good to have two teams here in the league from Canada once again. Obviously, we lost Brampton, but we add a team this year from Quebec. My French is not good. I'll be the first to admit that. Give me your pronunciation of the new team up in Quebec.
It's Trois Rivières. That's my pronunciation. If I want to do it short, I just say Three Rivers. So that's my other one for that. But that's the best I have for you in French.
So they're scheduling this year, and we know it was tough for baseball this year. The Blue Jays spent a lot of time in Buffalo before they were finally able to go home. How is it going to be for our American teams that are traveling across the border, whether they're going to Newfoundland or headed to Quebec to Tres Rivers or Tres Rivoire?
The testing is going to be the biggest thing. From a testing standpoint, coming back with PCR tests and everything else, that's going to be it. Obviously, there's a little bit different. Each jurisdiction has a little bit different stuff. I know masks are mandated up there. Both Trois-Rivières and Newfoundland, but from anything else standpoint, it's going to be everything is normal except for the mask, and then obviously getting tested. Coming back, the players and staff, whoever go, are going to have a negative PCR test within 72 hours of coming back. So that's going to, and same with the officials as well. Like, we're bringing officials down to Canada. So the testing part of it is the biggest hurdle. But I know from our side, on the officiating side, we have testing secured and everything else, and I know the teams are doing that as well. But that'll be the biggest hurdle.
That was going to be my next question: is how does the officiating side of it work for the Canadian teams? Are you going to have officials strictly that are officiating in Canada that won't come across the border? And that, because that's going to be a nightmare for them too. Obviously, working maybe one game one night, and then the next night you're here or there. So, how does that work?
We'll bring officials down from Canada, because obviously we have the Adirondacks, Worcester's, Maine, which is a short drive from the Canadian border. So, and we're going to be flying some guys down from Canada as well. So, like I said, we're at training camp right now. And guys that came down, a few Canadian guys are coming down and going home, so they had to get PCR tested and everything else. Once they got to camp to go home, it's at the end of the day, it's going to be more of a pain in the neck than anything, with making sure. You have to have an AirCan app. You have to have this. You have to have with flying and different things like that. So it's just going to be more, I'll say, paperwork and a little bit more of a pain in the backside than anything. Just making sure everything is secure, so the guys can get over and also get back home.
We were one of a few teams last year that was actually able to play the full 72 games. Knock on wood. Hopefully everything goes well this year. Let's be honest, Joe. We remember when we were 22, 23 years old, and it was not, you thought about sneaking out, sneaking one past the coach. These are young guys. They don't want to be stuck in their hotel rooms or apartments. Safety is obviously the first concern. How, I guess, convinced are you that this year everything is going to be fine with the vaccinations? Because obviously, as you mentioned, the one thing for the players, especially, is they can't be around people that are unvaccinated.
Yeah, that's going to be the tough part. From my end, which I'm in charge of protocols, I'm in constant contact with the athletic trainers, all 27 teams. It's just like last year. Last year, we had to have buy-in from everybody as well. Let's be honest. I didn't know what players were doing in Allen, Texas, or Fort Wayne, Indiana, or wherever it might have been that played last year. But we, at the end of the day, they've signed off on protocols from the union. They know what they're allowed to do. If you're vaccinated, you can, quote unquote, live a normal life, but you still have to be careful because you can still get it. It's just a matter of I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to act like I'm a doctor, but if you're vaccinated, the effects are a little bit minimal. You're going to have some more, but unvaccinated, you never know, especially with the Delta going around and everything else. So, we need everybody to buy in. We've asked the coaches, we've talked to the trainers, and it's part of the rules, right? To say to the guys, listen, we want to play hockey games. And we've put, from the league side of it, we've put penalties in place. If you have unvaccinated guys, we put there's some penalty. I won't say penalties, but there's some financial commitment by those players that are unvaccinated to play. And the simple reason of is that, listen, we're not putting the full onus on the teams to have to pick up all these expenses and everything else that they have to do. And hey, listen, it's a choice. Everybody has a choice in their life to make, and if they choose not to, then there's certain parameters that they have to follow. And the guys that are players, from a playing standpoint, that they're playing, they're pretty much living the rules that we dealt with last year. As you know, we were locked down. You go to your game, you go back to the hotel, you go to the rink, you go back to the hotel, you get on a bus, you maybe get on a flight. That's it, pretty much. There's going to be a few restaurants that they can go to. And now the guys that are vaccinated, they can go out to eat. They can do different things. But we've also asked them, and it's part of the protocols, that we don't want you to put yourself in bad situations. So listen, we're all young. We're all in our 20s. And we do stuff that probably we shouldn't have did, yes. But we didn't have all these crazy variances and all this, COVID stuff and everything else. So what we've said is, we have to be smart. And I did a speech with the officials yesterday at protocols, and I said, if you walk to a restaurant to go to get something to eat, and they're all vaccinated, the officials all have to be vaccinated to work this year. So if you go to a restaurant and it's packed shoulder to shoulder, there's nowhere to sit, just turn around and walk out and go find somewhere else to eat, because we want you to put yourself in the best possible position to not have to deal with this, but also our main focus is to play hockey games here. We don't need one of the things, and listen, we lived through some nightmares last year with canceling games and COVID stuff, and listen, it took up a lot of time, but we did play. 14 teams got to play, but we just need to be smart about all this stuff. There's certain cities in this league that COVID didn't even exist last year. Not by my standards, but by the cities that we had, like COVID didn't even exist. And we just need to be careful, and we need to do what we need to protect ourselves. We need to protect our staff and everybody else. So yeah, it'll be challenging again, but we'll work through it, and we'll get through it.
Absolutely.
We'll get through it.
So, well, I'll give Joe a chance to maybe hopefully grab a drink of water there real quick. I just wanted to talk to you about camp. We know what training camp is for hockey teams. We know what coaches are looking for when they put players on the ice, and hoping that guy will, do what they expect and make the roster. When you're holding officiating camp, first of all, how many guys are there? Where do you find these guys? And what are you looking for on a daily basis? I'm sure you and Stephen Thompson what are you looking for in an official that can make it and crack the ECHL?
So we brought 28 officials. This is Stephen's camp. from my end of it now. He's starting year 4. You know, this is his camp. It's his department. I oversee it to make sure it stays on the rails. But we brought in 28 officials. The NHL's here. The American League is here. We have 4 officiating development coaches here, commissioners here, you know, myself. So it's a fairly big camp. You know, yesterday they did fitness testing with the NHL. We had Dave Smith, who's the fitness guy for the NHL officials. He was here doing testing. We did introduction meetings last night, different things for myself and Ryan, and everything else. And then today, and then they skated yesterday as well after the fitness testing. And then today is pretty much, we had breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to go to probably 6 o'clock at night tonight, and we're going to take it for dinner. We're going to do meetings. We're going to go over rules. We're going to go over game management stuff, breakout sessions, all kinds of things from A to Z. Myself now, I'm going to sit in the background and take it in. If I need to answer any questions, I will. But you know, these kids all now come to camp in shape. You know, they want to make it to just no different than players. They want to make it to the American League. They want to make it to the NHL. So fitness is not an issue with these guys coming in anymore. And you know, we're making sure our goal here is when we leave tomorrow afternoon at some point in time, whenever we leave, is to make sure everybody that's here is comfortable with everything that we went through. They know the policies, they know the procedures, they know what we're expected to do. And then these guys here are our mouth to the other officials that aren't here if there's anything that comes up. And plus, we're going to have a Zoom call with Stephen will run a Zoom call next week, I do believe it is, with the 120 officials that weren't at camp to make sure that everybody is on board with it. But it's pretty much, you know, to get everybody together. The guys are going to work the most games here, bring them in, and do some, you know, go over everything from A to Z, make sure they're all comfortable and ready to go for the season.
I would not leave this call without talking to you about a little football. Proud Buffalonian, Lancaster, New York for me. You're from Orchard Park, right around that area?
I'm from Hamburg, so I'm
Hamburg.
Literally, I'm going to say, you know, turn down South Park on Route 20, and then stadium's right there, as you know.
Yep.
So I was probably 10 minutes, we'll say, from the stadium.
Well, what an exciting win for our Bills on Sunday night. You know, I think this was a statement game, Joe. I think nobody would have believed, maybe around the league, that this Bills were not a playoff, but a Super Bowl contender without beating Kansas City, or at least being in a really close game. And not only did they win the game, but they won it convincingly. Thoughts on the 21-22 Buffalo Bills?
Boy, it didn't look good week 1, as you know, and but we got Timmy Nowak here, who's from Buffalo, Stevens from Rochester, living in Buffalo. So we were in the room watching the game the other night, the 3 of us, and there was a few more people than just the 3 of us, but you know, it was a Buffalo Bills crowd, and you know what? I'll be honest with you, Tommy, I think, you know, listen, we grew up and you were there for the K-Gun offense and Andre Reed, James Lofton, and all those other players, Thurman Thomas, and everything else. But this team's loaded.
Yeah.
They're loaded. They're loaded on the offense. They're loaded on the defense. We've been through some goofy times with this football team here, but this might be the year. Let's see. So we got a good kicker, got, you know, good defense. You know what? The only thing that's, you know, might stop us is if we have to run the ball. But you know what? They've started to run the ball a little bit more, and I don't know. We've had a hard stroke a few different times. Let's just see. Can we get over that hurdle? I mean, listen, there's a few teams in the NFC. And listen, there's a guy playing down in a warm weather city that I would love to play him in the Super Bowl and kick the you-know-what out of him.
Oh, yeah.
I won't mention any names or any teams, but he was in our division for a long time. That would be kind of sweet to do. But yeah, it's. I think we're the best team in the AFC. period.
Yeah.
As of right. We can't put off the just the defense plan. Winning me doing well because I use my fantasy. So I can't think about that.
Joe, hey, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I agree with everything you said. And, if all this works out like we hope, have a great season, Super Bowl, knock on wood, we'll have a Jenny Cream Ale somewhere down the road together.
That would be perfect, and everything else. And I'm sure I'll see you here before long to get down there. And if you need me, you can just reach out anytime.
Absolutely. Tell our boy Stephen Thompson, Timmy Nowak, like you mentioned, a couple good Buffalo guys. We said hello. Continued good luck with your camp there, and we'll see you down the road.
I appreciate it, Tommy. And if you need anything, let me know.
All right. The great Joe Ernst, Senior VP of Operations for the ECHL, around the ECHL.